Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is John Taylor. I am your technical sales manager with Orange Photonics. Today we will be walking you through some of the unique ways the LightLab 3 is currently being utilized across the cannabis industry to support efficiencies, and we will take a deeper dive into our largest customer base and review the advantages that the LightLab brings to their day-to-day QC. I know we have Ashley on the line to support with questions. Hi, Ashley.
Hello, everyone.
So if questions do come up as we move forward, please let us know in the chat box and we will address them as time allows. We genuinely appreciate you taking the time today to learn more about our LightLab 3. As for our agenda, we'll review some of our LightLab 3's current industry applications. We will focus specifically on how cultivators and processors use LightLab 3 to benefit their business, and go over some of the many advantages the LightLab 3 will bring to your everyday. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, you may be asking yourself, what is a LightLab? The LightLab is the only mobile testing equipment on the market today that will deliver you measurables that you can in turn use to make strategic business decisions within your operation. Of the 66 analytes currently identified within the cannabis plant, the LightLab 3 can deliver results on 11 of them. The LightLab provides you with virtually identical technology found in benchtop laboratory-based HPLC UV instrumentation. Unlike your typical lab HPLC, the LightLab is application specific to cannabis, which allows us to streamline the sample preparation and testing methods. Our SOP has been simplified to ensure that both scientists and non-technical team members can accurately analyze cannabis plant and plant-derived products. As far as durability, not only is your LightLab well protected by a Pelican case, but it also incorporates components that are currently used within the Mars Curiosity rover, which, by the way, is still in operation and has been since 2012. Selective separation technology is used to break down each component and review them individually. The best analogy I've ever heard, this is your selective separation column here, but the best analogy I've ever heard is the column is like a hallway in a high school, and it's full of high school kids. And each of your 11 analytes has to go down the hallway to get to their classroom in 8.5 minutes. Some analytes like THCA and Delta-9 may be more popular than others. So they'll tend to get hung up with their friends as they walk down the hallway, and they'll show up at later times. While other cannabinoids like degraded THC or CBN, for example, may not have as many friends and will scoot through the hallway on their way to class to be able to be analyzed by the instrumentation. So that's just kind of a general layman's explanation as far as what selective separation technology is. It's a fine balance between time and separation, right? We've narrowed it down to 8.5 minutes. That's the run time that the LightLab will operate. And within those 8.5 minutes, we want each of those 11 analytes, if they're within the sample, to come out at their designated time. We review it on multiple wavelengths to ensure that we're identifying the right cannabinoid, and that's how we quantify your results. How do those results reflect once the test is complete? Everything will list out nicely in the format you see before you. Within alternate run modes, for example, infused product, the instrument will allow you to change the results to, say, milligrams per gram, if that is your preference. Note the share button at the bottom of the screen. The LightLab has both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi capabilities, which allows you to instantly share results and receive timely updates to the instrumentation. All data can be extracted with a USB for further evaluation, analysis, and to show off your chart making skills. Challenges currently exist in the cannabis testing space due to a lack of consensus methods used universally across the industry. As many regulated ISO 17025 testing facilities may be using all of the same equipment, Things like variable sample preparations and variable methods. For example, inter-day variations, which I'll talk a little bit about, can lead to variable results. Inter-day variations is very similar to you are running the sample with the same instrument, but perhaps Sally runs the instrument Monday through Friday, and Tommy comes in on a Saturday to run a batch of 50 tests, but with his time constraints, uses a variable sample prep than Sally does typically during the week. Lo and behold, you can have the same sample with variable results. Currently, organizations exist such as AOAC and ASTM that are actively working to hopefully help us resolve these issues moving forward. In the meantime, the three most important aspects of valid testing methods are precision, accuracy, and repeatability. The LightLab recently participated in one of the largest and most well-respected proficiency studies through the University of Kentucky in the country, along with 77 additional participants. I'd highly encourage you to go to our webpage at some point and take a deeper dive into the information that's provided, where we provide a direct link to the actual study. The LightLab performance within the study strongly indicates that the LightLab can perform as well and in many cases better than a fully equipped laboratory participant. We use reputable reference standards to calibrate your LightLab through Cerilliant to ensure your LightLab provides accurate results. Cerilliant is a company that provides reference standards. Reference standards are essentially pure cannabinoids mixed in methanol. So to calibrate an HPLC instrument, you take your different analytes and you run them through the instrument to establish a peak at 100% or close to 100%, 94. And with that, you can utilize that information and incorporate multi-dimensional nonlinear regression to assess samples as they come in. As they drop through that selective separation column, we can determine how much content is within your particular sample preparation. Like any scientific piece of equipment, math and science are involved. So your weight volumes and your solvent volumes must be accurately entered into the LightLab in order to obtain accurate results. Literally, through these regressions, the LightLab is performing billions of calculations in order to quantify those results accurately. There are a wide variety of LightLab uses across the scope of the cannabis industry. We serve the medical, adult use, and hemp markets. Those customers include cultivators, processors, regulatory agencies who will utilize the LightLab to spot check legal operations and manage third-party backlogs. Law enforcement will have a LightLab to execute search warrants or analyze and confirm material at border checkpoints. Research departments and universities will use the LightLab for teaching opportunities to students and conduct plant research, which is already long overdue. Today, our focus will be geared towards cultivators and processors within this space. Why? Why is in-house QC testing so important? Well, in short, I firmly believe any responsible cannabis operation will have some form of in-house testing. And even a respectable third-party lab will tell you this. The timeliness of testing data shortens your go-to market timeline by accelerating decisions, i.e. harvest or processing. Yield improvements through identifying peak harvest points. Minimizing overall testing expenses. Building confidence in results before obtaining certificates of analysis. Identifying how to process with various cultivars based on consumer trends. It's that consistent and reliable consumer experience which strengthens and solidifies a brand. Whether you're an MSO or you're curating a loyal customer base within a 10-mile radius, a consistent product experience is essential. And of course, peace of mind for all our hemp LPs who are managing those federal thresholds. No matter where you find yourself within the industry, there is certainly no shortage of opportunity to apply in-house testing. Mother plants can be maintained for up to 12 months. I've even heard some going much longer than that, but perhaps with LightLab ownership, you may determine or may not determine that 90 days is your ideal cutoff point to clone it out. When you're topping clones, saving that excess material to test for early stage ratios within your plant. 8 to 12 weeks of flowering leaves leaves ample opportunity to evaluate your plant performance without the hassle and expense of third-party turnarounds. And also possibly verifying your storage. Is it adequate? Are you maintaining quality and freshness of your stored material? On the extraction side, essentially it's the same thing. You have anywhere from 5 to 10 quality checkpoints that can be incorporated within the 4 stages of extraction. For cultivators, cultivar selection is essential to ensure performance of your specific cultivation environment in order to produce the desired cannabinoid ratio for the specific product application, i.e. smokable flower, searching for that best entourage effect ratios by rapidly hunting phenotypes. As far as harvest time, indoor cultivation can save on overhead costs through, whether it be HVAC or room turn cycles or staffing. Outdoor cultivations can maximize season, depending on the geography and the future weather forecast. Hemp cultivators can maximize CBD output and maintain that 0.3% THC threshold. They can schedule the Department of Agriculture prior to their scheduled harvest time. Historical data, what can be done with this? Well, it affords indoor and outdoor cultivations to some extent with the opportunity to assess air temperature, root temperature, humidity, CO2 levels, air velocity, pH levels, nutrients, light exposure, water levels, all to get a scope of how your plant is performing through its process. Much of the same, although not altogether controllable for outdoor cultivators, the LightLab allows for stronger predictive decisions based on ever-changing weather conditions. For processors, their efforts are effectively to manage product quality control. There are a lot of false certificates of analysis out there, and unless you have experience in reviewing these thoroughly, it is very easy to wind up on the wrong end of a transaction. Whereas with the LightLab, you can prevent the purchase of poor or even the wrong material in a buying situation. For example, we had a client who was purchasing a large quantity of what was believed to be THC distillate at 95%. Well, when tested with the LightLab, it was determined that what the distillate actually contained was 5% THC and 93% CBD. Now, this distillate is certainly valuable to someone out there in the industry, but not to our client. And they literally saved hundreds of thousands of dollars on this particular purchase. Whether it be heat exposure or perhaps you are simply running your material for too long, meaning you've over-extracted. You've drawn all the cannabinoid content from your batch and you've been running it through the system inadvertently. There are many ways to eliminate over-processing of material. An example, a LightLab owner was running their extraction material for 6 hours at a time. And what they realized after testing various batches is what they converted in a 2-hour time period was actually the same quality and quantity of cannabinoid content in their final product. And they were actually able to quadruple their output without sacrificing any quality. As far as predictive decisions, much like a cultivator, the historical data allows you to make assumptions on things like runtime based on the quality of the material received or how the material has progressed. As an overview, here's a summary of the universal advantages to equipping your operation with the LightLab. Customer satisfaction, strengthens brand, improved consistency, improved product, expense savings, real-time decision-making, informed decision-making, continuous performance improvements as you work to expand and build upon your business model. If you are considering starting your own lab, I've done a little research into this, and aside from the facilities, the licensing, the insurance, the salaries and the training, you can expect to spend or rally roughly $1.5 million in equipment, and that's on the low end of the scale. At least 2 of those said items will be an HPLC UV. And a brand new HPLC UV will cost you approximately $50,000. You could probably get a used one for roughly the same cost as a brand new LightLab. However, you must also consider the training, calibration, service, and salary is going to increase that expense 4 times over. The LightLab is designed so that any of your team members can operate it, provided they can follow the instructions set forth on the screen. As you evolve with your LightLab, so does your process, so do your results. We estimate the LightLab will tackle as much as 90% of your annual potency testing needs, which means no more 5-day wait times, no more $80 a pop. In fact, you can now incorporate more testing into your day-to-day now that you own a LightLab. The bottom line I'm trying to get across to you here is for $50,000, the price of a new HPLC UV, we can deliver you the same quality results, and you can secure a premier LightLab with all the available modules, a 2-year extended warranty, 5 recalibrations, and enough consumables to run 1,000 tests a year for the next 5 years. So that's my special for today. If anybody's interested in that, I'll be taking calls shortly after this presentation. Let's take a look at the breakdown. So how do we come up with these figures? So on this slide, we demonstrate the cost of a base model LightLab, all right, which will still deliver you 7 analytes, and the projected return on your investment. So for a base LightLab at $13,110 paid in full, as you can see, assuming you're running no more than 5 potency tests per week, your average third-party potency cost will average roughly $80 plus shipping, or with shipping, excuse me. I incorporated shipping in this calculation. Anticipating, and I think we're being a little on the positive side, 72-hour turnaround time to get your results. And you will accomplish 90% of your current testing in-house with the LightLab. Your LightLab will essentially pay for itself in 9 months. And interestingly enough, the cost of a premier LightLab with all modules and the extended warranty is roughly $17,000. And then your break-even point in this example would extend to 12 months. So even if you're only running 5 tests per week, your LightLab will pay for itself in a 12-month time period. Now, say you're currently testing 5 times per week on average, but now with the LightLab, you decide it's time to step up your game and double it. Now you're running 10 potency tests a week, and your break-even will drop to 5 months with a base model and 7 months with a premier. And if you are a large-scale operation and running 120 tests per month, and we know you're out there, we're working with you, your LightLab will pay for itself in 2 to 3 months tops. And you should probably consider investing in 2 or more units. I mean, you're talking about almost $10,000 in monthly testing costs and almost 8,000 hours in saved turnaround time. Time is money. I'm pretty sure that's still a thing. In conclusion, securing a LightLab may be one of the best business decisions you could potentially make today. With over 500 active units and growing across all aspects of the cannabis space, and the continual advancements and developments and improvements of our own technology here at Orange Photonics, we are your cannabis in-house potency analyzer now and in the future. Those of you who currently own a legacy LightLab, we cherish the opportunity to continue to support you until you are ready to upgrade your unit to a LightLab 3. And I strongly encourage you to reach out to our support team for additional details. Finally, I want to thank you for your time today, and we'll open the floor up for any questions. Ashley?
Yes, so one question that came in, it is asking why do we require sending the unit back in for calibration, unlike other offerings on the market? And they reference gas chromatography like the SRI 310 mmGC.
Yeah. So first and foremost, we are not a GC unit. The calibration requires to be sent back because we service the instrument fully to ensure that you have another working instrument for another year. Not only do we recalibrate it to ensure that it's measuring and testing accurately, as most any HPLC would require, but we also service the innards of the equipment to ensure that nothing's come loose. These are rugged instruments, and many times they get put through a beating, and our responsibility is to protect our brand and to make sure that you have a working, functioning instrument. And right now, that requires it to be serviced back at our facility. I appreciate the question.
Another question we got was, can LightLab be used for leaf nutrient analysis for levels of micro and macronutrients in the plant?
Yeah, great question. Unfortunately, we do not measure microbes. We only measure the 11 analytes that are listed on our web store.
Great. Yeah, another question just came in asking about are pesticides, humidity, and solvent tests going to be available?
I meant to put this on. I apologize, guys.
Hello, Taylor.
Ashley, can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it just went away, but I believe the question was,
pesticides and heavy metals?
Are we going to be able to be testing for pesticides and things of that nature?
Yeah, so ideally we'd love to be able to do that. Unfortunately, I can't look at any of you with a straight face and tell you that that's something in the near future. As of right now, you need a mass spectrometer to be able to identify pesticides at the parts per billion level that's required from a regulatory standpoint. So you most likely will not see that with the LightLab. I mean, anything's possible, but as of right now, no.
And we're asking, will a more detailed terpene analysis become available?
That is something that's on the radar for sure. There's no definitive timetable as far as a launch, but rest assured, if the standards exist, then the potential is there. And if we can dial in the instrument to do that, then that is something that we are certainly looking to launch in the future.
Thank you. And what are the minimum and maximum limits for CBD and THC?
That's a great question. A lot of that depends on the run mode. We have essentially three main run modes. You have your hemp compliance mode, you have your flower run mode, and you have your concentrate mode. So for each particular run mode, hemp compliance, for example, looks at both your THCA and your Delta-9 readings. We're ignoring all the other cannabinoids because we're looking at such a lower bandwidth. We're allowing those other cannabinoids to saturate in the column. So we're focusing solely on THCA and Delta-9. We have a lowest detection limit of 0.05%, with a variability of plus or minus 0.05%. So almost 10 times lower than 0.3. As far as flower, we have a lowest detection limit of 0.5% with a variability of plus or minus 1%. With concentrate samples, we have a lowest detection limit of 1.5% and this is for all cannabinoids that we offer. Yeah, lowest detection limit and plus or minus variability of plus or minus 3%. Good question. Thank you.
Another question we have here, do you anticipate expanding your business so we can begin shipping internationally and in Europe, etc.?
Yes. Short answer to that question is definitely yes. We are currently in the process of coordinating facilitation of that, if you will. We're not quite where we want to be as far as being able to provide you with the deliverables necessary to accomplish that. Right now, as the process goes, is international clients must secure their own freight forwarding. The reason for this is because depending on the destination, a lot of locations require the recipient to be certified to receive the said methanol material. And obviously we can't take part in that because we're not the recipient on the other end, which is why we currently ask our international clients, and we have many that do this, secure their own freight forwarding to get their instrument overseas.
Thank you. With so much variability in the testing industry, how do I know that my results are accurate?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think, I can't help but think of THC bias. There is not a whole lot, and I alluded to this in the presentation, there's not a whole lot of national standard. There's no federal oversight. There's no regulatory oversight when it comes to these testing. I mean, things are starting to come into play, but it's kind of Wild West out there. And I really think it has a lot to do with this consumer perception that high THC means great product. And I think for anyone who's done any, just a smidgen of research in consuming cannabis, I think, it's very well understood that that's not necessarily all there is to it. I think the most underappreciated cannabinoid is probably CBC. But that's a whole another rabbit hole. But as far as consistency, the things that you need to rely on are precision, accuracy, and repeatability of the instrument. Those other procedures and regulatory requirements and things like that, they'll come in to focus soon enough. Probably not soon enough, but they'll come into focus. But right now, we have to work with what we know. We know that if you work with reputable standards, you can calibrate an HPLC instrument to read results accurately. Who benefits from this whole THC fiasco? Well, the laboratory benefits from providing high THC results because it in turn, equates to repeat business from the grower. The grower benefits because, they get to sell their product at a higher price point because higher THC means higher value. In some odd way, the government loves it because they can charge tax. Some states charge higher tax on higher THC content. So it's a win-win-win. Who loses? The consumer. So really it's about personal responsibility and making sure that we're all doing this the right way. And that boils down to sample preparation, in understanding the biology of a plant and, recognizing that there are folks out there who will cut their top colas and sprinkle that with kief and spray it with distillate and send it off for a COA analysis. The sad part is, the lab only has control of so much. They don't have control of the samples that are coming in, although some states have worked towards, being required that the lab actually goes out to collect the sample to be able to test it in order to obtain a COA. So, changes are happening, but you rely on what you know. Rely on the fact that HPLC is the standard in this industry, to run cannabis analysis, and we do it at a price point that is virtually unbeatable compared to what will get you equitable results.
Great. And I think we can squeeze in this one last question here. Do you provide standards for calibration, or is that done when you get the instrument back once a year for calibration?
So we do it once a year when it comes back for recalibration. We can certainly assist you with either creating your own check standards to ensure that the instrument's functioning appropriately. But here's the good news is if anything doesn't make sense on the reading of the LightLab, we have a support team that is available Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They can remote access into your instrument for troubleshooting. They can walk you through, unique sample preparations. So if anything seems out of sort, we're here to support you. We want to make sure that we're not here to necessarily deliver you the highest THC or the highest CBD content sample result. What we're here to do is to work with you to ensure that the results you get are accurate, and that you can make confident decisions with them. That's the bottom line.
Great. I think that's all we
question,
have.
actually. I get
Oh, one more question? Well,
Yeah.
wait, what? Yeah, okay, cool. One of these questions here, you kind of covered it, but I think it's important to cover again. They ask, is this instrument NIR? And they ask, how big is your database?
That's a great question. You know, how do I answer that? Truth be told, we get compared to NIR technology all the time. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're essentially virtually the same technology as an HPLC UV, which means we're using UV spectroscopy to analyze your sample. NIR is valuable instrumentation for a number of industries. In fact, it's FDA approved in a number of industries, as they like to tout on their product websites. The challenge is it's not FDA approved in the cannabis space. It's also not very reliable from an accuracy standpoint. And the reason for this is because, you know, as the commenter most likely is fully aware, is NIR technology is really only as strong as its database, meaning what they're doing is they're essentially taking a picture of your sample and comparing it to a library of information, data collected through HPLC ISO certified laboratories. But if the particular sample or the cultivar that you're working with is not within that library, then it's going to play a guessing game. And now you're talking about a variability of, you know, sometimes plus or minus 10%, and you can't really make informed business decisions with technology like that, at least not in the cannabis space. Anyone who knows anything about, you know, the biology of a plant knows that, you know, your highest cannabinoid contents are going to be in your colas, and you know, your bottom third and your middle third of the plant flowers, you know, much like a vegetable, are not going to produce the kind of content that you're going to get in your best flowers. So, you know, I think it's just it's knowing what you're working with. You know, if you can afford to get HPLC data at the price of what it would cost to have an NIR device, honestly, I think that's a no-brainer. But, you know, to answer your question, we're not NIR. No. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor.
Is that it?
I believe so. We are at 3:32. Thank you very much for answering all those questions.
Absolutely, Ashley. Thank you. I just want to thank everyone once again for attending and making it this far. My intention was for this presentation to be both informative and motivating. And I hope that we accomplished this for you today. So with that said, I want all of you to have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to your call. Thanks so much.